Subscribe to Storylab. Now, let's begin this one. Marcus Phillips sat on the back porch of his modest two-story home in Cedar Falls, watching his 12-year-old son Caleb practice the basic defensive stance he taught him. The boy's form was sloppy, his elbows too wide, his weight distribution all wrong, but Marcus didn't correct him. Some lessons had to be learned through failure. "Dad, this feels weird," Caleb said, dropping his hands. "Why can't I just avoid trouble like you always say?" Marcus sipped his coffee, the late afternoon sun warming his weathered face. At 42, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who'd seen the worst humanity had to offer and made peace with it. The scars on his knuckles told stories he'd never share with his son. Avoiding trouble is always plan A, but sometimes trouble doesn't give you a choice. 16 years in the Army, 12 of those with Delta Force. 8 as their primary hand-to-hand combat instructor, training the most elite soldiers in the world how to kill with their bare hands. Now he spent his days running a small self-defense center downtown, teaching suburban housewives and office workers how to throw a proper punch. The transition hadn't been easy. When Lydia died 3 years ago, the cancer had been quick, merciful in its brutality. Marcus had buried himself in work and whiskey for 6 months before Caleb's silent suffering pulled him back. The boy had lost his mother. He wouldn't lose his father too. "Can we stop? I want to finish my homework before dinner." Caleb's brown eyes, so much like Lydia's, looked up at him hopefully. "Go ahead. I'll start the grill." Marcus watched his son disappear inside, noting the slight hunch in his shoulders that hadn't been there a month ago. Something was wrong. He noticed the changes gradually, the forced smiles, the reluctance to go to school, the way Caleb flinched whenever his phone buzzed. Marcus had served 3 combat tours. He knew what fear looked like, even when it tried to hide. He'd give it 1 more week. If Caleb didn't come to him, he'd start asking questions. The next morning, Marcus dropped Caleb off at Cedar Falls Middle School and watched him walk through the front doors. His son's steps slowed as he approached a group of boys near the entrance. One of them, tall, broad-shouldered, with the swagger of someone who'd never been told no, stepped into Caleb's path. Marcus's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The tall boy said something. Caleb looked down. The other boys laughed. Then they let him pass, but not before one of them shoved his shoulder, sending his backpack sliding off. Marcus was out of the car before he realized he'd moved. "Mr. Phillips." A woman's voice stopped him. April Schroeder, the school counselor, approached with a clipboard pressed to her chest. "Is everything all right?" Marcus forced his hands to unclench. "Who's that boy?" "The one who just pushed my son." April followed his gaze, and her expression shifted, something between concern and resignation. "That's Trent McBride. His father is Edgar McBride." The name meant nothing to Marcus. And his father donates $300,000 a year to this school. Built the new gymnasium. Funded the computer lab. April's voice dropped. "If you're thinking of filing a complaint, I'm thinking about having a conversation. Mr. Phillips, please. Let me handle this. I'll talk to Trent, talk to his father. How many times have you talked to them already?" April's silence was answer enough. That evening, Marcus waited until Caleb had finished his dinner before he pulled up a chair beside him at the kitchen table. "I saw what happened this morning." Caleb's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "It's nothing. How long has it been going on?" "Dad." "Caleb." The boy set down his fork. When he looked up, Marcus saw the shame burning in his eyes, and something inside him broke. "About 2 months. Maybe 3. Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. "Trent picks on everyone, but he really hates me. Ever since I beat him at the science fair." "Has he hurt you?" A long pause, then a small nod. Marcus kept his breathing steady, his face neutral, even his cold fury coiled in his chest. "What's he done?" "Shoves me into lockers. Steals my lunch money. Posted stuff about me online." Caleb wiped his eyes. "Last week he cornered me in the bathroom. Him and his friends. They made me get on my knees and beg them to let me go. They recorded it." Marcus's vision went red at the edges. "I deleted the video from everywhere I could find it, but..." Caleb's voice cracked. "Dad, I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd be disappointed. You always talk about standing up for yourself, and I couldn't." Marcus pulled his son into a hug, holding him tight. "You listen to me. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing. That boy is a coward who surrounds himself with other cowards. That's not strength. That's weakness wearing a mask. What are we going to do? First, we're going to do this the right way. School. Police. Give them a chance to fix it. Marcus pulled back, looking his son in the eye. And if they don't, what then? Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we do it my way. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in bureaucratic futility. Marcus met with Principal Catherine Russell, a nervous woman who wrung her hands and spoke in circles about investigating the situation and giving all parties a fair hearing. Nothing happened. He filed a report with the Cedar Falls Police Department. Detective Bill Walls, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, took his statement and promised to look into it. 3 days later, he called to say there wasn't enough evidence to pursue charges. The video, no one could find it. And without it, it's just your son's word against Trent McBride's. My son isn't lying. I'm not saying he is. But Edgar McBride has lawyers. Good ones. Unless you want to spend the next 2 years in court fighting a defamation lawsuit. Marcus hung up. He spent the next week doing his own research. Edgar McBride wasn't just wealthy. He was connected. His company, McBride Development, had built half the commercial properties in Cedar Falls. He sat on the city council. He golfed with the mayor. His money funded the Police Benevolent Association's annual charity drive. But there was more. Marcus still had friends in the intelligence community. One of them, a former colleague named Gustavo Hamilton, who now worked private security, owed him several favors. Edgar McBride is dirty, Gustavo told him over encrypted chat. Nothing proven, but there are rumors. Strong-arm tactics on competitors. Intimidation. A few years back, a contractor who refused to sell his business to McBride had his house burned down. Never solved. What about his crew? He keeps 8 guys on payroll. Calls them site security, but they're muscle. Ex-cons, mostly. A few former MMA fighters who couldn't cut it professionally. They handle his problems. Any of them military? 2. Army, but nothing special. Definitely no special operations. Marcus filed that information away. Thanks, Gus. Marcus, whatever you're thinking, be careful. This guy doesn't play by rules. Neither do I. The final straw came on a Friday afternoon. Caleb came home with a black eye and a split lip. He wouldn't talk about what happened, just went straight to his room and locked the door. Marcus found the video 20 minutes later. Someone had posted it to a new account. Caleb on his knees in the school bathroom, tears streaming down his face, while Trent McBride stood over him laughing. Say it again, loser. Say, I'm a worthless piece of garbage. The video had been viewed 40,000 times. Marcus watched it once. Then he put his fist through the drywall. The next morning, he walked into the school and requested an immediate meeting with Principal Russell. Mr. Phillips, I understand you're upset. I'm past upset. Marcus placed his phone on her desk, the video playing. This is assault. This is harassment. This is a crime that your school allowed to happen, and you did nothing to stop it. Principal Russell's face went pale. I wasn't aware. You are now. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to expel Trent McBride. Today. Or I'm going to every news station in the state with this video and your emails where you promised to handle the situation. The principal's hands trembled. Mr. Phillips, Edgar McBride is... I don't care who Edgar McBride is. I care about my son. And if you won't protect him, I will. He left without waiting for a response. By Monday, Trent McBride had been suspended for 2 weeks. By Tuesday, Marcus received his first phone call from Edgar McBride. You must be the Delta Force daddy I've been hearing about. The voice was smooth, confident, dripping with condescension. You got my boy kicked out of school. Your boy got himself suspended. And it should have been expulsion. Let me explain how this works in Cedar Falls, Mr. Phillips. I built this town. I own this town. And nobody tells my family what to do. Your son is a bully who assaulted my child. If you want to discuss this like adults, here's what we're going to discuss. You're going to convince that principal to reverse my son's suspension. You're going to have your boy apologize to Trent publicly. And then you're going to learn your place. Marcus laughed, a genuine, surprised laugh. Mr. McBride, I've been threatened by terrorists, warlords, and men who made careers out of killing. You don't even register. We'll see about that. The line went dead. 3 days later, on a quiet Thursday evening, Marcus was cleaning up after dinner when he saw headlights flooding his driveway. One car, then another, then a third. He walked to the front window. An expensive black SUV led the convoy, followed by 2 white vans. Doors opened, and men spilled out, 8 of them, spreading across his front lawn like they owned it. They were big, rough-looking, the kind of men who solved problems with their fists. And there, stepping out of the SUV, was Edgar McBride. Edgar was tall, silver-haired, with the tan face of a man who spent weekends on his yacht. He wore a sport coat that cost more than most people's cars, and he walked with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never faced a consequence in his life. "Dad!" Caleb appeared at the top of the stairs, eyes wide. "What's happening? Go to your room. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you." "But..." "Now, Caleb." The boy ran. Marcus walked to the front door and opened it before Edgar could knock. He stepped onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind him. Edgar smiled, a wolf smile. "Mr. Phillips, we need to have a conversation about your son. My son is inside. Whatever you have to say, you say to me." "Fair enough." Edgar gestured to his men, who formed a loose semicircle behind him. "Your kid snitched. Got my boy suspended. Made me look bad in front of half this town." He leaned in close, his breath hot with whiskey. "Now we're going to teach you both what happens when someone crosses the McBride family." Marcus looked past Edgar at the 8 men. He assessed them in seconds, their stances, their builds, the way they held themselves. 2 had fighting experience visible in their balance. The others were just big, intimidating to civilians, but untrained. "Mr. McBride, I'm going to give you one chance to get in your car and leave." Edgar laughed. "Or what? Or I'm going to hurt every single one of your men. And then I'm going to hurt you. 8-on-1. You're either crazy or stupid." Marcus smiled. 16 years Delta Force. I was their hand-to-hand combat instructor. I trained soldiers to kill people like your man for breakfast. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Edgar's eyes. But pride was a powerful thing. He turned to his crew. "Get him." The first man moved. Marcus let him come. The man, tall, thick-necked, probably a bouncer in a previous life, threw a wide haymaker that telegraphed from a mile away. Marcus sidestepped, caught the arm, and used the man's momentum against him. One sharp twist, a crack of bone, and the first attacker was screaming on the ground. Time elapsed. 8 seconds. The next 2 came together, smarter than the first. One threw a jab, while the other tried to grab Marcus from behind. Marcus blocked the jab, redirected it into the grabber's face, then drove his elbow into the jabber's solar plexus. Both men went down. 22 seconds. The 4th and 5th man had MMA training. Marcus could tell by the way they circled, keeping distance, looking for openings. He didn't give them one. He closed the gap on the nearest, caught his kick, swept his standing leg, and stomped on his knee as he fell. The other threw a combination, technically sound, but too slow. Marcus slipped under, delivered 3 rapid strikes to the ribs, and finished with a palm strike to the chin. 51 seconds. Numbers 6 and 7 decided to rush him simultaneously. Marcus dropped low, letting them collide, then rose with devastating uppercuts to both jaws. They dropped like stones. 1 minute, 14 seconds. The 8th man, the biggest of the bunch, had pulled a knife. "Come on then," Marcus said, his breathing barely elevated. The man lunged. Marcus redirected the blade, stripped it from his hand, and broke his wrist in one fluid motion. A knee to the gut doubled him over. An elbow to the back of his head put him down. 1 minute, 38 seconds. 8 men, all on the ground. Some groaning, some unconscious, none getting back up. Marcus turned to Edgar McBride. The silver-haired businessman had gone pale, his confident smirk replaced by raw terror. He stumbled backward, tripping over one of his fallen men. Wait, let's talk about this." Marcus grabbed him by the collar and dragged him across the lawn, past the groaning bodies onto the porch. "Caleb." A moment later, his son appeared at the upstairs window. "Come down here." Caleb emerged from the front door, his eyes wide as he took in the scene. 8 men scattered across the lawn like fallen leaves, his father holding the most powerful man in Cedar Falls by the throat. "This is the man whose son hurt you." Marcus said calmly. This is the man who came to our home to threaten us, to hurt us. Caleb stared at Edgar, and something changed in the boy's face. The fear was still there, but beneath it, something harder was taking shape. What do you want me to do with him? Marcus asked. Edgar was crying now, actually crying, his designer clothes stained with grass and dirt. Please, I have money. I'll give you anything. Caleb looked at his father, then at Edgar. Then he smiled, a small, cold smile that reminded Marcus of himself. Make him beg, Caleb said. Like he made me beg. Marcus nodded. You heard him. He forced Edgar to his knees on the porch, right in front of his son. Say it. Say what? You know what? The same word your son made mine say. Edgar's face crumpled. I'm. Marcus's grip tightened. Louder. I'm a worthless piece of garbage. Again. I'm a worthless piece of garbage. Please don't hurt me. And what do you say to my son? Edgar looked up at Caleb, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. For my son. For tonight. For all of it. Marcus released him, and Edgar collapsed onto the porch, sobbing. Caleb, go inside and call 911. Tell them we had intruders. His son hesitated, then nodded and disappeared inside. Marcus crouched down beside Edgar. This isn't over. You understand that, right? Tonight was just the beginning. Edgar's eyes went wide. What do you mean? You came to my house with 8 men to hurt my son. You think humiliation is enough? You think a few broken bones squares us? What do you want? Marcus stood up. I want you to spend every day for the rest of your life wondering when the other shoe is going to drop. I want you to look over your shoulder every time you walk down the street. I want you to know that everything you've built, everything you've done, is going to come crashing down. You can't. I have lawyers, connections, and I have time. Marcus smiled. All the time in the world. The first ambulances arrived 12 minutes later. The emergency room at Cedar Falls General was chaos. 8 men, various states of broken, shattered wrists, dislocated shoulders, fractured ribs, one with a knife wound from his own blade. The nurses worked through the night, processing them, while Detective Bill Walls sat across from Marcus in an interview room. 8 guys, Walls said, reviewing his notes. 8 guys came to your house with Edgar McBride, and you took them all down by yourself. Self-defense. I can see that. We've already got 3 of them talking, trying to cut deals. Assault with intent. Conspiracy. One of them mentioned McBride, specifically paid them a bonus for tonight's visit. Walls closed his notebook. I'm not arresting you. This is cut and dry. But Marcus, you made a powerful enemy tonight. I made a powerful enemy when I moved to this town and my son beat his at the science fair. Walls nodded grimly. Watch your back. The next week, Marcus installed cameras around his property. He varied his routes to and from the training center. He taught Caleb what to do if anyone ever approached him. But the expected retaliation didn't come. At least, not in any way he could have predicted. What came instead was subtler, more insidious. His business license was suddenly under review. The health department cited his training center for violations that had never existed before. 2 of his long-term students canceled their memberships, sheepishly explaining that they'd been advised to train elsewhere. Advised by whom? Marcus asked one of them, Debbie Meyer, a 40-something divorcee who'd been taking self-defense classes for 6 months. My boss, she admitted. Mr. McBride's company handles our building's security. He made it very clear that associating with you could be problematic. Marcus smiled politely and wished her well. Then he went home and started making phone calls. Gustavo Hamilton arrived in Cedar Falls 2 days later. He was built like a refrigerator and moved like a cat, the kind of man who looked uncomfortable in anything but tactical gear. You look good for a guy who just took on 8 men, Gustavo said, shaking Marcus's hand. They weren't impressive. No, but their boss is. I've been digging deeper into McBride since we last talked. The guy's got dirt going back 20 years. Tax evasion, bribery, witness intimidation. Problem is anyone who could testify either disappeared or changed their story. What about physical evidence? That's where it gets interesting. Gustavo slid a folder across the table. There's a contractor named Abel Owen who used to be McBride's go-to guy for his more questionable projects. Forged permits, substandard materials, the works. They had a falling out about 2 years ago. Owen's been living off the grid ever since, but I found him. Marcus opened the folder. A photograph showed a thin, nervous-looking man with a graying beard. He'll talk. He's scared to death. But he's also tired of hiding. If he had protection, if he believed McBride could actually go down, yeah, I think he'd talk. Then let's make him believe. Abel Owen lived in a trailer on the outskirts of town, surrounded by enough security cameras to rival a military installation. When Marcus and Gustavo pulled up, a curtain twitched, followed by the sound of multiple locks disengaging. The door opened a crack. Who sent you? No one sent us. My name is Marcus Phillips. I had a run-in with Edgar McBride recently. The guy who put his whole crew in the hospital? Abel's eyes widened. That was you. It was. And now I'm looking to finish what I started. I hear you might be able to help. Abel studied them for a long moment, then opened the door. You better come inside. The trailer was cluttered but clean, every surface covered with file folders and photographs. Abel had been doing his own investigation for years, documenting everything McBride had ever done. I worked for him for 7 years, Abel said, spreading documents across a folding table. Did whatever he asked. Looked the other way when I shouldn't have. Then he asked me to sign off on inspection reports for a housing development. Reports I knew were false. I refused, and my whole life fell apart. Lost my business. Lost my wife. Nearly lost my life when someone cut my brake lines. And you kept all this? Insurance. As long as I have these files, McBride can't kill me without risking everything coming out. Abel laughed bitterly. But he knows that too. Stalemate for 2 years. Marcus examined the documents. Falsified permits, shell company records, photographs of buildings with obvious structural defects. This is enough to put him away. Enough to start investigations. But McBride owns half the people who'd be doing the investigating. You need someone outside his reach. FBI, maybe. Federal prosecutors. I might know someone, Gustavo said. That someone turned out to be Jacqueline Pierce, a federal prosecutor Marcus had worked with during his Delta Force days. She'd been investigating organized crime connections in real estate development, and McBride's name had crossed her desk more than once. I wanted to build a case against McBride for years, she told Marcus over a secure line. But he's insulated himself well. Every witness either recants or disappears. I have a witness who won't recant. And documentation going back almost a decade. There was a pause. That would be significant. There's a condition. This man, Abel Owen, he's been living in fear for 2 years. He needs protection. Real protection. If his testimony is as strong as you say, we can arrange witness protection. But Marcus, I need you to understand, building a federal case takes time. Months, maybe longer. Whatever personal conflict you have with McBride, you can't interfere with our investigation. Marcus smiled. I wouldn't dream of it. While Gustavo coordinated with Jacqueline Pierce, Marcus focused on another front. The video of Caleb's humiliation had been taken down from social media, but the damage was done. His son was being homeschooled now. Caleb's choice, one Marcus supported completely, but the boy still carried the scars. I hate that they got away with it, Caleb said one evening, not looking up from his homework. Trent's back at school, acting like nothing happened. He didn't get away with it. Not really. His dad came to our house with 8 guys, and you beat them up. So what? He's still rich. Still powerful. Trent's still telling everyone at school that his dad is going to sue us. Caleb finally looked up. When does he actually pay for what he did? Marcus considered his answer carefully. Your grandfather, my father, was a violent man. He believed that every problem could be solved with force. When someone wronged him, he hit back immediately without thinking about consequences. He spent half his life in and out of prison because of it. So we just do nothing? No, we do something different. Something better. Marcus sat down across from his son. True strength isn't just about winning fights. It's about choosing the right fight at the right time in the right way. Edgar McBride is going to pay for everything he's done, but it's going to be complete. Total. When he falls, he won't get back up. Ow! You'll see. The next month was quiet on the surface, but Marcus was far from idle. He reached out to other people McBride had wronged over the years. Calvin Sheldon, a former business partner who'd been pushed out of a lucrative development deal. Francisca Hogan, whose mother had been forced to sell her property below market value. Mickey Murphy, a former employee who'd been fired after reporting safety violations. Each of them had a piece of the puzzle. Each of them had grievances they thought they'd never be able to address. "What are you building?" Gustavo asked one evening, reviewing the network of connections Marcus had mapped out. "An army. These aren't soldiers, Marcus. They're civilians. What exactly do you expect them to do?" "Nothing physical. Nothing illegal. I just need them to tell the truth, all at the same time, in a way McBride can't suppress." Marcus pointed to a date circled on his calendar, 3 weeks away. The Cedar Falls Business Excellence Awards. McBride is receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award. Every influential person in the region will be there. And that's when we bring down his whole house of cards. But Edgar McBride wasn't content to wait. A week before the award ceremony, Marcus returned home to find his front door standing open. His hand went instinctively to the knife he kept strapped to his ankle as he moved through the house, clearing each room. He found them in his son's bedroom. Trent McBride, flanked by 2 boys Marcus didn't recognize, standing over Caleb's desk. One of them was rifling through his drawers. Another had spray paint in his hand, obscene words already decorating the walls. And Trent was holding Caleb's laptop, grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Get out of my house," Marcus said quietly. Trent spun, and for just a moment, fear flickered in his eyes. Then bravado took over. "Or what? You can't touch me. My dad's lawyers said so. Anything you do to a minor, they'll destroy you. I don't need to touch you." Marcus stepped closer, and all 3 boys backed up despite themselves. "But I do need you to understand something, Trent. Your father's lawyers won't help him where he's going. And when his protection disappears, what do you think happens to you?" Trent's smirk faltered. "You're just. I'm a man who put 8 of your father's best guys in the hospital without breaking a sweat. I'm the man who's been building a case against your family for the past 2 months. And I'm the man who's going to enjoy watching everything you have get taken away." Marcus reached out and plucked the laptop from Trent's frozen hands. "Now, get out of my house. And tell your father that if anyone sets foot on my property again, I won't call the police. I'll just handle it myself, the way I handled his friends." The 3 boys ran. Marcus filed a police report: trespassing, vandalism, attempted theft. The charges would probably go nowhere, but that wasn't the point. The point was documentation. The point was building a pattern. That night, as he scrubbed the spray paint from Caleb's walls, his phone buzzed. Edgar McBride's number. "You threatened my son. Your son broke into my house. Consider him lucky I let him walk out. You're done. You understand that? I don't care how many witnesses you think you have. I don't care what evidence you think you've gathered. I will bury you and your kid." "Mr. McBride," Marcus said calmly, "you're welcome to try. But I should warn you, I've faced enemies far more dangerous than you. And they're all dead." He hung up. The Cedar Falls Convention Center was filled to capacity for the Business Excellence Awards. Chandeliers sparkled overhead. Waiters in crisp white jackets navigated between clusters of the town's elite. At the head table, Edgar McBride held court, accepting congratulations on his upcoming Lifetime Achievement Award with the easy charm of a man who believed himself untouchable. Marcus watched from a corner table, Gustavo at his side. "Everyone's in position?" Marcus asked. Abel's backstage with Jacqueline Pierce. Calvin, Francisca, and the others are scattered throughout the crowd. "The press is here, local news, plus that investigative reporter from the state paper you tipped off. And the technical side, Corey set up the presentation system an hour ago. All we need is the signal." Marcus nodded. Corey Moore was a tech specialist who'd helped Marcus during his military days. When Marcus explained what he needed, Corey had driven 6 hours to make it happen. The dinner proceeded normally: rubber chicken, bland speeches, polite applause. Edgar McBride laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny and shook hands with people who owed him favors. He had no idea what was coming. At 9 o'clock, the MC took the stage. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. This year's Lifetime Achievement Award goes to a man who has shaped Cedar Falls into the thriving community it is today. Marcus's phone vibrated. A text from Caleb. "Good luck, Dad." He smiled and typed back, "Watch the news tonight. Please join me in welcoming Edgar McBride." Applause filled the room as Edgar rose from his seat, adjusting his tie with practiced modesty. He crossed to the podium, accepted the Crystal Award, and leaned into the microphone. "Thank you. Thank you all. This honor means more to me than I can express." The screen behind him flickered. Edgar paused, glancing back. The PowerPoint presentation that should have displayed photographs of his charitable work showed something else entirely. Documents, financial records, falsified inspection reports, and, most damning of all, photographs, Edgar meeting with men who were very clearly not legitimate business associates, handing over envelopes of cash, standing beside buildings that had been condemned after construction failures he'd signed off on. The room went silent. "What the hell?" Edgar lunged for the podium's controls, but the presentation kept cycling, each slide more damning than the last. A recording began to play. Edgar's own voice, captured during a phone call he never knew was being monitored. "If Owen doesn't back off, make sure he has an accident." Nothing fatal, just enough to send a message. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The mayor knows the score. "He'll keep the investigation buried as long as we keep his campaign funded." Someone screamed. Edgar was pressing buttons frantically, but the presentation couldn't be stopped. "Those buildings will hold for a few years. By the time anyone notices the foundation problems, I'll be retired in the Bahamas." The lights came up and federal agents flooded into the convention center. Marcus watched as Jacqueline Pierce approached Edgar McBride with a warrant in one hand and handcuffs in the other. "Edgar McBride, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, bribery of public officials, witness intimidation, and racketeering. You have the right to remain silent." Edgar's eyes scanned the crowd wildly, and they landed on Marcus. Pure hatred. Marcus raised his glass in a silent toast. The next 3 months were a parade of consequences. The federal investigation expanded beyond anyone's expectations. Edgar's entire network unraveled. Corrupt city officials, compromised contractors, shell companies spanning 3 states. 22 people were indicted. Edgar himself faced over 40 charges. His assets were frozen. His company dissolved. His beautiful house on the hill was seized by the government. His wife, Merle McBride, filed for divorce and disappeared to her sister's place in another state, taking Trent with her. Marcus followed the news with satisfaction, but he wasn't finished. He visited Edgar one time, at the county jail where he was being held pending trial. The silver-haired businessman looked nothing like the arrogant man who'd walked onto Marcus's lawn 3 months earlier. His face was gaunt. His eyes were hollow. Prison orange didn't suit him. "Why are you here?" Edgar croaked through the visitation glass. "I wanted you to understand something," Marcus said. "That night, when you came to my house with your men, you thought you were dealing with some suburban dad who'd roll over. You thought your money and your connections made you invincible. You destroyed everything. No, you destroyed everything. I just made sure everyone could see it." Marcus leaned forward. "You came after my son. You filmed his humiliation and spread it across the internet. You sent your boy to terrorize him at school, and when that wasn't enough, you brought 8 men to my home to teach us a lesson. I get it. I made a mistake. You made a choice. And now you're living with the consequences." Marcus stood up. "Enjoy prison, Edgar. I hear white-collar criminals don't have it easy." He walked out without looking back. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Abel Owen testified, protected by federal marshals, finally free of the fear he'd carried for years. Calvin Sheldon testified about the business deal that ruined him. Francisca Hogan testified about her mother's property. A parade of witnesses, each adding another brick to the wall building around Edgar McBride. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing came 3 weeks later. 35 years federal prison. No possibility of parole. Marcus watched the news coverage with Caleb beside him. The boy had changed over the past months, stood taller, spoke with more confidence. The shadows in his eyes had begun to fade. "Is it over now?" Caleb asked. "The legal part is." Edgar's going away for the rest of his life, probably. What about Trent? Marcus considered the question. His mother took him out of state. From what I hear, he's in a military-style boarding school now. Whether he learns anything from this. He shrugged. That's up to him. Do you think he'll ever come back? Try to get revenge. Maybe. Someday. But by then, you'll be ready for him. Caleb nodded slowly. Can we start training again? For real this time? Marcus smiled. I thought you'd never ask. 1 year later, Marcus Phillips stood in the newly expanded training center, watching his advanced self-defense class work through combat drills. The business had tripled in size since Edgar's arrest. It turned out that taking down the most corrupt man in Cedar Falls was excellent advertising. Gustavo Hamilton had relocated permanently, running the security consulting side of the operation. Abel Owen, his testimony complete and his demons exorcised, had become an instructor, teaching construction safety to young contractors who wanted to do things the right way. And Caleb, now 13, lean and focused, was working on his third-degree techniques in the corner, his movements precise and controlled. Marcus's phone buzzed. Jacqueline Pierce's number. Congratulations are in order, she said. The appeals court just upheld every conviction. McBride's done. I saw. Thank you for everything, Jacqueline. Thank you. This case made careers. More importantly, it protected a lot of people who didn't have anyone else fighting for them. After hanging up, Marcus walked over to where his son was training. Take a break. Caleb grabbed his water bottle, breathing hard. What's up? Remember what you asked me, back when all this started, about when McBride would actually pay for what he did? Yeah. Marcus put a hand on his son's shoulder. He paid. His family lost everything. His legacy is destroyed. Every person he ever hurt got to watch him fall. And you got to see that bullies don't win in the end. Not if someone's willing to stand up to them. Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then, I want to learn everything you know, Dad. Not to hurt people, but so I can protect people. Like you protected me. Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. Pride. Yes, but something more. Something like hope. Then let's get to work. The evening sun cast long shadows across the training center floor as father and son resumed their practice. Outside, Cedar Falls was healing, slowly, imperfectly, but healing nonetheless. The corrupt official who'd enabled McBride's empire had been voted out. The buildings he'd constructed negligently were being inspected and reinforced. The people he'd intimidated were finally speaking freely. And in a federal prison hundreds of miles away, Edgar McBride sat in his cell, stripped of his money, his power, his family, and his freedom. All because he'd underestimated a quiet man who'd spent his life learning how to fight. Some lessons, Marcus reflected, only got learned the hard way. He corrected Caleb's stance, elbows tighter, weight forward, and watched his son adjust without complaint. Better. Again. Caleb reset, eyes focused, ready. Again.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.